Hi, I'm Velvet Velour, but you can call me Vivi, and I'm here to talk about retro video games. Let's talk about a game that was plagued by bugs, embargo issues, and publisher interference, but still managed to become what I consider the pinnacle of role-playing games. It's Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines was developed by Troika Games and released for PC in 2004. It's an action RPG where you play a fledgling vampire, thrust into a dangerous modern-day Los Angeles where various vampire factions vie for power. The setting is based on White Wolf's World of Darkness, which is a pen-and-paper RPG. It opens, as many Western RPGs do, with character creation, which I'll get into in a bit. Once you've created your character, you'll witness the embrace which turns you into a vampire. Your sire is quickly slain for doing this without permission from the powers that be, and you are put on trial for your afterlife, which is almost very short. However, the man in charge, Prince LaCroix, is swayed by public outcry and allows you to live. But now, you work for him. You're sent out into the world, and the first friendly character you meet is Jack, an ex-pirate anarchist who offers to show you the ropes. He explains some of the different vampire factions and offers to take you on a quick mission, which functions as a tutorial, teaching you how to sneak, fight, and feed. He also tells you about the Masquerade. The Masquerade is the law that vampires or kindred live by to ensure that their existence is kept a secret. Indiscretions, like using powers in front of humans or feeding in front of people, are frowned on, and if you commit too many Masquerade violations, it will not end well for you.
Hello, LA. You're up way past your bedtime, aren't you?
You're taken to your apartment in Santa Monica. The space is small, but by the time you've explored it, you'll have learned a lot. Checking your email will give you the address of Mercurio, whom the prince has tasked you with helping, pointing you on your way to your primary quest. You'll also see a mysterious message from the Tremere Regent, a tantalizing glimpse of a quest and location to come. And then there's an email advertising penis enlargement, because the game never takes itself too seriously. Turning on the radio treats you to the sultry voice of Deb, who deftly handles the weirdos that call radio stations in the middle of the night. LA is full of them, and their rantings can sometimes be oddly prescient. Stepping out into the hallway, you'll see a newspaper, telling the story of a grisly series of murders. I wonder if that'll be relevant later. Within just a few minutes of handing control over to the player, the game has done a ton of world building. While your first quest involves getting explosives from some drug dealers, you'll eventually find yourself in the midst of a supernatural power struggle and under a great threat. A mysterious sarcophagus has been uncovered, which is thought to contain the body of one of the oldest and most powerful vampires. Its appearance could signal Gehenna, the vampire apocalypse. Every faction wants to get their hands on it, and they all want you to help them. Talking to the dozens of characters you'll meet is one of the greatest delights of the game. Though I've played it multiple times, I never find myself skipping dialogue. The writing is so engaging, it's sardonic, biting, and political. But there's also an economy of language that means the game never feels weighed down by exposition. Visually, the characters you'll meet are attractive, their facial expressions lovingly animated, with a glint in their eyes and a resonance to their voices. The voice acting is excellent, and you'll likely recognize many of the players. John DiMaggio, probably best known as Bender in Futurama or Jake in Adventure Time, plays your first friend and guide, Smiling Jack. Jack is your rock during your time in LA. No matter how many bad choices you've been making, he's always there to offer some advice or opinions. And in this world, it's nice to see a friendly face from time to time.
What's important is I'm offering help. You make it back from Santa Monica with your hide and we'll trade life stories, okay? Till then, I got about this much time. You in or out?
Courtney Taylor, who is Jack in the Mass Effect series and the protagonist in Fallout 4, plays the fiery anarchist damsel, as well as your ghoul friend Heather. Heather is a human you have the choice of saving very early in the game. If you give her your blood, you'll have a loyal servant. But at what cost?
You... I feel like I know you. Like you've always been here.
Michael Goff plays the scholarly Beckett. He will certainly make you want to
stay a while and listen.
He also plays the creepy Gimbal, who you should not stay around for too long. Beckett is a loner, not pledging allegiance to any faction. He knows a lot and offers advice often. He's one of the few characters who seems trustworthy.
A ghost? Quite ordinary. I generally pay wraiths no mind. All but a few are willing to give up their secrets.
And there's Grey Delisle, who's voiced a ton of cartoons and characters like Catwoman in Arkham City and Nova in StarCraft 2. She plays my favorite character, Jeanette, as well as her twin sister, Therese. Jeanette is a Malkavian, adept at alliteration and achieving all her ambitions. She has a mad, poetic way of speaking, and I'm always a little blue when I move past the Santa Monica portion of the game, where she sadly stays.
The tide goes out, the tide comes in, and then it waves goodbye again. It'll take me a few years to wake this city up.
Along with the prime voice acting, there is quality sound design, and the whole thing is scored with a great goth soundtrack, featuring tracks from Lacuna Coil, The Genitorturers, and Chiasm. Both the licensed and original music fits each area perfectly, and all comes together to make a moody, mesmerizing, and sexy soundtrack.
So what makes Bloodlines a great role-playing game? It lets you do a ton of both mechanical and narrative character building. There's a lot to sink your teeth into.
Let's start at the beginning, character creation. You first choose your gender and clan. Your clan will have an effect on events and how people react to you. It also dictates which 3 disciplines, which are types of supernatural abilities, you can use. If you're a Bruja, generally seen as rabble-rousers prone to rage, you can use Celerity, which gives you incredible speed to aid in combat. If you're a Toreador, the social butterflies of the vampire world, you can use Presence, which negatively impacts the stats of those around you, making them easier to control or kill. If you're a Tremere, you're the only clan capable of using Thaumaturgy, blood magic. You can drain blood from afar, or even cause people's blood to boil and their bodies to explode.
Thaumaturgy is really fun.
Aside from disciplines, there are also your more mundane skills. The combination of attributes and abilities make you better at performing certain feats. Do you want to use violence to solve your problems? You can do that and choose to specialize in firearms, melee weapons, or your fists. Or claws if you're a gangrel. If you'd rather talk your way out of trouble, you can do it with persuasion, intimidation, or seduction. You can also increase your skills in hacking or lockpicking if you'd rather take a more indirect approach to things. During your time exploring LA, you can even choose whether you want to experience things in first or third-person view. You always have options, and the skill checks which determine whether you succeed feel transparent and fair. In most combat areas, you can make your presence known and go in guns or disciplines blazing, or take a stealthy approach, sneaking up on unwary humans and draining them of blood without ever having to break a sweat. I don't find firearms in the game all that appealing to use, but relying on a combination of stealth, disciplines, and melee is quite satisfying. What really makes the role-playing aspect of the game special, and makes it very replayable, is how much being a Malkavian or Nosferatu changes things. Malkavians carry the curse of madness, and can see and hear things others cannot. This greatly impacts the way they speak and the way others react to them.
A child of Malkav, no less. Do dark visions cloud your sight, young one? Shattered reflections of your clan father's mind?
All player dialogue is completely different when you play a Malkavian. Your words are twisted and perplexing, just like your mind, but they can also foreshadow future events. This can make your dialogue options a little opaque in meaning, but it can also make things hilarious. Malkavians are the only clan who can use the dementation discipline, a new kind of persuasion which is akin to mind control and can cause hallucinations and madness in others.
I liked Bloodlines a lot when I first played it as a Tremere, but it's when I played a Malkavian that I really fell in love with it.
The other unique clan is the Nosferatu. These vampires are disfigured and frightening to mortals, with no chance at all of blending in. If humans see them, they'll run away in fear, and this can even cause Masquerade violations. For Nosferatu, Bloodlines is a game of stealth and hacking. You'll have to travel through the sewers, avoiding people and feeding on rats. You'll get disciplines like Obfuscate, which can make you invisible. While the Nosferatu path doesn't appeal to me, since I think the conversations are some of the best parts of the game, it may appeal to stealth lovers and does change things up considerably. Narratively, you'll face many decisions as you make your way through the world. These can seem small, whether to give a dying woman a taste of your blood to save her life, or whether to side with Jeanette or her sister when you need them to call off a feud. And they can be large, like what group to ally yourself with and what to do with the Ankharan sarcophagus. While there are no real branching paths, there are different character reactions to see and multiple endings. As you make decisions, your humanity meter will be affected. Depending on how much humanity you have, new options may open up to you.
The dialogue options and decisions make me feel like I'm playing a fully fleshed out character and really developing the kind of vampire they will become.
But it's not just as an RPG that the game succeeds. Throughout its 30 to 40 hour runtime, at times it made me feel like a detective in a supernatural noir story. In Santa Monica, you wind up looking for a number of missing people. Bail jumpers, someone's lost love, and even a missing bounty hunter. You need to track down clues by hacking into computers and finding locations, or questioning those who might know something and persuading them to help you out. It's also, at times, a very effective first-person survival horror, before this was such a ubiquitous genre. The Ocean House Hotel is an extremely creepy location, with ghosts apparating, items flying off tables as you approach, and a story told through newspaper clippings which brings to mind The Shining. You'll face weird little monsters while hunting down a snuff film in Hollywood and visit the sublimely creepy and suitably twisted home of the Malkavian Primogen. Bloodlines is also darkly comedic. Dialogue options, especially if you're a Malkavian, can be hysterical. Ads heard on television or the radio, or conversations you can overhear are always quite funny. Plus, there's some fourth wall breaking.
Whether or not you win the game matters not. It's if you bought it.
Every time I play, I feel completely immersed. The Los Angeles of Bloodlines, though often sleazy and violent, is seductive. You want to explore it and see all it has to offer. It, and its inhabitants, look pretty sexy, but usually hide something dark just underneath.
As brilliant as this game is, it's not without its problems.
Most of these problems come down to the game being released before it was ready. It was full of bugs. Everything from graphical glitches like characters' clothing moving around erratically to a nasty game breaker near the end. The camera misbehaves when you're moving around enclosed areas, and character animations are often janky. There's also a drop in quality as you move through the 4 main hubs of the game. Santa Monica, the introductory area, is revelatory. Downtown and Hollywood both have some great side quests and characters to meet, but they feel a little less robust. But Chinatown feels unfinished. There's a lack of side quests, and it just doesn't feel as alive or interesting as the others. It's probably the worst in terms of bugs, and the most combat-heavy, which is not where the game excels. Also, it can be kinda racist. Almost every character of color is a stereotype.
Player, what's the score? How they hang? Good evening and all that commotion. Welcome to Fat Larry's Trucker Mac, the only store for all your needs after 10 o'clock.
Hi! Welcome to Sang's Herbal Remedies. I am Sang. How may I assist you?
Are you... police?
Hold on, please. These are good remedies for many problems. No credit cards.
The Kuei Jin, vampires from Asia, are scary because they're so Asian and different than Western vampires. This is one of the only areas where I feel the game has not aged very well.
Due to bugs and a number of other reasons I'll get to in just a sec, Bloodlines did not fare well on its original release. Though reviews were generally positive, it sold a measly 72,000 copies.
How did this happen? How did Bloodlines have such great ideas and design but such poor execution? Let's look at how it was made. Developer Troika Games was founded by Tim Kaine, Leonard Boyarsky, and Jason Anderson, three of the people behind Fallout, so it had a great CRPG pedigree. Due to creative differences over the development of Fallout 2, the three men struck out on their own to make games their way. Or that was the plan anyway. Bloodlines would be Troika's third and final game, and the development of it was not smooth. Troika used small teams for developing their games. According to Anderson, almost the entirety of Bloodlines' 4-year development was done under crunch, and some developers went unpaid for the final weeks of work. Overworked developers are less productive and likely less physically and mentally healthy developers. There were also issues with the engine. Bloodlines was developed on a prototype of Valve's Source engine. It was the first non-Valve game to use it. During development, a number of changes were made to the engine, Troika had little support, and found much of their code didn't work well with it. Valve also imposed an embargo that Troika could not talk publicly about Bloodlines until Half-Life 2 was announced, or release it before Half-Life 2 came out. And then there was the game's publisher, Activision. Tim Kaine, in an interview for the book Gamers at Work, cited a number of poor decisions by Activision, including incomplete quality assurance and not giving enough time to fix known bugs. After a number of schedule and budget overages, Activision froze development, though the devs were not yet finished with it. Activision had decided on a build to go gold and held it until release, about a month later. Any fixes worked on during that time had to be patched in after release. I do feel the need to point out here, as easy as it is to blame everything on Activision, bugs and rushed endings impacted all three of Troika's games. Arcanum of Steamworks and Magic Obscura, which was published by Sierra Online, and The Temple of Elemental Evil, published by Atari, received these same complaints. The reality is likely that both developer and publisher shared responsibility for these problems. One thing Activision can certainly be blamed for is their choice of release date. They released Bloodlines on the same day as Half-Life 2, which was much more highly anticipated and used the Source engine much better. While Troika continued to work on bug fixes, they could not secure a publisher for new projects and shut down in February of 2005. Their final patch for Bloodlines would be the last thing that Troika produced.
Despite the bugs, poor sales, and sad end for Troika, some people knew right away how special this game was, and they wanted to make it even better.
Starting only a couple months after Bloodlines released, fans, notably Dan Upright and Werner Spall, started developing unofficial patches for the game. These began by fixing obvious bugs, but soon offered fixes for gameplay and technical issues, along with restoration of content that wasn't included in the game. Their project has continued, with patch version 10 coming out just this year. The community's love for and dedication to Bloodlines have kept it alive and increased its reach far beyond its initial sales. Steam Spy puts the number of owners of the game on Steam between 500,000 and 1 million. Bloodlines is one of a kind. The atmosphere, intriguing characters, and deep world makes it fun to go back to again and again. It's a game I always look forward to exploring and will never forget. All the wonderful things in the game, and a good fan patch, can make its shortcomings melt away. However, as much as I love the game, thinking about it also leaves me with a sense of melancholy, as I've yet to play a role-playing game that has rivaled this experience, and as far as something this great coming out in the future, it looks bleak. Most action RPGs seem more focused on making the world big than giving you interesting choices to make. Maybe one day I'll get a game I love just as much as this one, but I won't stake my life on it.
So that's my look at Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. If you haven't played it, I highly recommend it. Just make sure you patch it first.
If you want to see more, you can check out my full playthrough of Bloodlines, or another one of my videos. I also have a Patreon if you want to support what I'm doing here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.